Hello and welcome to another episode of Reality Check over here on Talkin Jets. There he is, my co-host Jeremy Jets Chaos, aka Egghead, popping through. I am Matt O'Leary, excited to be with you. Jeremy, how are you today?
Doing well, doing well. More Jets Twitter, but how can I complain? They do nothing but give us material.
Yeah, it's tremendous. I was a little bit worried as right now, at least we have OTAs, which is great because tons of content comes out of OTAs. But I was a little bit worried about that time, where between the draft and the training camp comes, like, well, what are we going to talk about on all these new shows we have on Talking Jets? Well, we have many things to discuss. So let's hop into it today. We want to start with our most recent addition to the New York Jets, Tariq Cohen. The Jets add Tariq Cohen. Jeremy hasn't really played in the league since 2020. He played 3 games that year. Has missed a ton of time due to injury. Really unfortunate. So he tears his ACL 3 games into 2020. Misses the remainder of that season, all 2021, and then popped his Achilles trying to make a comeback in 2022. So I feel for the guy, but it's been a very long time since he was on the football field.
Yeah, look, I think it's interesting. I think that they're being very strategic in this new kickoff rule, and they're trying to measure what kind of athlete would be suitable for this style of kickoff, right? In this new scheme that every team's gonna have to come up with. So it's natural you'd have some curiosity, and I think you said it early before we were on air. It would be a great story. But that's what it is. It's just this long shot. It would be a great story.
That's how I feel right now. But Dakota says that Tariq Cohen is going to get 100+ returns for the Jets this year. Are you buying that stock? I set the over-under at 99.5 returns for Tariq Cohen, are you taking the over or the under on this one, Jeremy?
Well, I think it's obviously I'm taking the under because I think there's maybe a 10% chance he makes the team, and maybe I'm being generous.
It's going to be a challenge, right? Like, yes, we remember in 2018, there's no denying he was an all-pro. He was an all-pro returner that year. I have the numbers here, so I might as well share the screen. Let's do that. I'll share the screen with you because, again, fantastic season. He had 411 punt return yards, which led the NFL that year. He also had, the year before he was doing kick returns. He had a punt return touchdown the year prior, but 3 straight years, really good returner. But unfortunately, again, injuries played a major factor in it. And I don't know what he's going to be. Yeah, again, 4 years removed now from the last time that we really saw him on an NFL field.
He would have to be so explosive and so impactful because after his rookie year, there was some excitement to him as a running back, and then he just wasn't a running back. I mean, he's not really a functional running back that you want to ever have to use in a game in that position. I mean, he is only has valuable potentially as a kickoff returner if he can return anything near that form. Remember, if you're even a little bit off when you're relying on speed and cut ability, we've seen just a little bit off in the impact it's had on careers of great players who have tried to come back and have never been able to do it. I've seen guys try to come back after 1 year, and it wasn't even an injury. There was one such guy we paid. His name was Le'Veon Bell, and he was awful. How many times I've been watching for over 40 years, and I'm trying to think of a story of how many guys have returned, forget 1 year, from even 2 years of not being in the NFL to coming back to the NFL and having any success. And the only player I could think of on the top of my mind is Michael Vick, and that was not due to injury. It was due to him being in prison.
That's a good example. Sorry, it was very blunt how you said it, and that was for being in prison. Dion, would you count Dion with the Ravens in 04 and 05, or was he pretty much done by then?
I mean, was he an impact player? Did he move the needle, or was it just a name at that point?
Yeah, more so just the name, I would
I
say.
mean, yeah, Darrelle Revis, who had the injury, tried to come back and play for Kansas City and was an invisible man that no one spoke about. He came at the end of the season to help him for a playoff run and then disappeared the next year. I mean, usually when players are out of the league for injury and try to come back, without a team, it just doesn't. Even if they make it, it doesn't have longevity and it doesn't have impact, except for maybe we're missing something and there might be, an example out there. And I'm not saying it's impossible for Tariq Cohen. I'm saying we have to be realistic. It's a long shot. He's fighting for a roster spot. And we're already going to talk about he's going to get 100 kickoff returns. I mean, it's two different conversations. Let him make the team first.
So are you saying it's too soon to kiss goodbye Izzy Abanikanda then? Like this isn't the Tariq Cohen signing doesn't mean the end of the line here is coming for Izzy Abanikanda. You're
setting that up because you know how I feel about that. It's not Izzy's spot he's competing for. He's only competing. We all know he's competing. If he's going to take someone's spot, I can't speak factually, but I mean, I think strongly in all the analysis we do, all the watching we do, all the paying attention, all common sense says he's competing with Xavier Gibson because that's whose spot he'd be taking returning kickoffs.
Yeah, this is low says Izzy is gone. I'm not there on that one because even when Tariq Cohen was at his prime, he was used as a receiver out of the backfield. He had 725 receiving yards in 2018, but he really wasn't a rusher. He would have more receiving yards in 2 of his 3 seasons. I won't even count 2020 because he played in 3 freaking games, but 2017 as a rookie had 370 rushing yards and 353 receiving yards. So about even with a slight, very ever so slight lean towards rushing. 2018, as I said, his best season, 444 rushing yards on 99 attempts, but caught 71 passes for 725 yards. And then that last year in 2019 had 213 rushing yards and 456 receiving yards. So clearly his impact was as a returner and catching passes out of the backfield. Now, if it's a numbers game and they say we're going to carry 4 running backs, but really only use 3, and it's, Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis backing up, Breece Hall, and you have Tariq Cohen listed as a running back, just like the same way Justin Hardy was listed as a cornerback. Maybe that's it, but it's not as like he's going to now take away Izzy's carries if that's, what you're thinking here.
Yeah, and I don't even know if they're planning to give Izzy carries. I don't know how many carries. The fact that they're saying Izzy's gone is ridiculous to me. He's done nothing to lose his job. I mean, if he comes out and has a horrible camp, fine. But the kid has done nothing wrong. Unless you want to talk about his 22 snaps as a rookie against the worst, behind the worst offensive line when the other team was stacking 8-9 guys, where Breece Hall was looking horrible for multiple games. And only in the end did they find a groove with him to put up any numbers because we were so brutal on offense. But why would we be looking to replace Izzy with Cohen? Izzy is explosive. Izzy is the change of space, a change of pace, explosive back. Why would we take a guy who hasn't played in 4 years, who's already had a torn ACL, a torn Achilles, who's trying to make a comeback? Can we just see if he makes the roster? And again, it's so clearly that if you replace someone, it would be Xavier. I mean, it would be Gibson.
Right. I agree with you also, because it's a fair point with, anyone who's talking about the importance of special teams in 2024. Oh, absolutely. I think both you and I would be up here talking about how it's going to be significantly more important to have special teamers. But I do think that you can make the same case with Gibson that we're making with Tariq Cohen. It's like you're having Gibson make the roster because he would be your returner. And as Robert Saleh said, by the way, Gibson is the guy right now. There's going to be a competition, but he's the leader in the clubhouse, at least for the moment, We haven't gotten to training camp yet, but I'm not throwing the towel out on Izzy. I do think he has an uphill battle in comparison to Allen and Davis, because I think stylistically those two fit a little bit better with what the Jets are going to be trying to do. But as you point out, he didn't play until the Buffalo game in week 10. That was his first action. He had 1 carry for 11 yards in that game. And then against Houston, wasn't very good. 3 carries, -1 yards. Let me pull it up. Give me a second. Sorry. Here we go. 3 carries, -1 yards. Miami 4 for 8, which was bad, clearly. Really nice game here. 9 for 43 yards. And then 2 for 3 yards, 3 for 6. So it's not like he had multiple games where he was getting a ton of reps. And the games where he got the most work was his best.
Right. And that's key, because look at the type of running back he is. He's not a power back. He's the kind of running back where if you watched only a sample of Barry Sanders, you could do an 8-play run where he looks like crap. He was the kind of running back who would get 2 yards, 3 yards, 2 yards, 3 yards, 50 yards. You know, he needed reps. I mean, we saw Dalvin Cook, how bad he looked.
Yeah.
I mean, when you don't get reps, it's hard to judge a running back when you don't get a lot of reps, especially one that is probably going to put up their numbers in more of a big run kind of way. A guy that needs a bunch of reps to get a big run, or the way I see Izzy, as you bring him in the middle of the third quarter, defense is worn down, you've been pounding them with power running backs, and then all of a sudden you do this change of pace because you notice your offensive line is starting to win and create big space, and you shoot this little bullet, you know, of explosion and speed through that space. And that's might be his role. And I see that just because we're going with a power back strategy doesn't mean you don't want to have at least one guy in the room that has a different skill set for that change of pace.
Yeah, that's fair. I definitely think that's fair. And that's why I don't think he's not making the team. I do see him making it and being the 4th running back. Unfortunately, again, like I said, I think Allen and Davis end up in front of him. Just because I think most of their run game is going to be, you know, power run or inside running instead of all the outside zone stuff, which is unfortunate for Izzy because he is like that prototypical outside zone, Kyle Shanahan style running back. Same thing like when Ty Johnson was here, like very, very similar. A lot of speed. They get the corner, turn upfield, and then they go. Like that's the strength. And I don't know how well that's going to fit here, but it's May and they had 1 practice with Tariq Cohen. I'm not at the point here where I could say that Izzy for sure is not making it. Does he have to go out and have a good training camp? Yes, because as you said, Jeremy, if he doesn't, then yeah, this becomes a reality. If we're talking about, you know, hey, it's July and he can't pass protect or he a bunch of fumbles or whatever, then we will have the conversation that there's an issue with making this 53-man roster. But I just don't think we're there yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, let's just say this. I don't think he's in any more danger because we signed Tariq Cohen to try to make a difference on special teams. I think Izzy was in a certain level of danger, any level of danger, that a 6th-round pick coming into a situation to a team who just picked 2 running backs higher that's changing their scheme to a scheme that doesn't really match your skill set. Those are the reasons why Izzy could be in trouble. But regardless, I don't care who you are. You're a running back. You were a 6th-round pick. You're coming into your 2nd year. You didn't get much of an opportunity to play your 1st year. You better come into camp and play well. That's what camp is. There's 90 guys fighting for 53 spots. Any player in the league, whether it's Tariq Cohen or not, it doesn't matter. If you come in as a running back that was a 6th-round pick in your 2nd year, you're going to have people chasing you down. You have people fighting for their lives for roster spots. So you better show up and you better show growth and show improvement.
And I thought at times last year he looked okay in the preseason games, like the spin move that he had against who was that, Carolina in the second preseason game. That was a really nice one.
That guy cut the next day.
Yeah, that was a good one. Proud NY Jets fan is hanging out with us. Shout out to Proud NYJ. our guy Nick, friend of the show, Izzy was in danger the minute we changed the run scheme, even more so after the draft. I think a scheme fit is going to play a really big factor here. If what we perceive is true, which I have no reason to believe that's not going to be the case, they're going to be running the ball with authority up the middle, in between the A gap and all that stuff. That's not Izzy Abanikanda's strength. But can we get to July before we say that this guy's not going to be on the roster?
And there's a chance that they know more than we do. They saw Izzy in practice all the time. They saw his work ethic. They saw his growth. There might be, you don't know. They might already in their head say this guy is probably not going to make the roster. But that's not why they went out and got Tariq Cohen. That would be more of an explanation of why they drafted 2 running backs in the draft, although I think we already said it's more because of the scheme, to fit the scheme. But it's the wrong reason to worry for Izzy. Izzy already, like Nick says, already had to worry. As far as not worry as I have no chance to make the roster. He has to have the mindset of I need to come into camp and I need to work my ass off and fight to make the roster. And there's going to be a ton of guys in that position. I just think Tariq is if he brought in a new threat to a New York Jet, it's without question Xavier Gibson now is really going to have pressure on him.
Yeah, that's just it. The pressure is only going to be cranked up that much higher potentially with these changes.
Absolutely. I mean, look, the thing with Xavier Gibson is I understand nobody could see it's possibly doesn't make the roster because they're remembering one play, and it was a hell of a play. I mean, that run back against Buffalo is something we will never forget, right? I mean, it was one of the most twisted emotional experiences we've had to go through as a fan base. We were devastated and overjoyed at the same exact time. We were dealing with 2 completely different emotions when that happened. But if you take away that run and look at the rest of his performance, how is he not disregarded just like you disregard Alan Lazard? The guy was so shaky on returns. It got to a point where we were screaming. I think it was at halftime with you and Ryan with Green Bean during the reaction game. We were literally calling for them to stop fielding punts. Basically, don't put a guy back there. That's what we were literally asking for because we were so afraid of Xavier Gibson.
And again, to his credit, huge moment. First ever game, rookie, game-winning touchdown return on a punt. Awesome. We will never, ever forget that. Your guys' reaction on the stream was unreal. Me watching the game had a huge reaction. It was great, and it was an unbelievable moment to cap off what was a very emotional game for a ton of different reasons. After that, from weeks 2 to week 18, he was okay. Okay might be putting it nicely. There were times where he looked like, again, straight up uncomfortable fielding punts. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I would rather have the guy who's a little bit more sure-handed, who is going to field the punt, than the guy who is insanely explosive, is going to make a ton of people miss, but he might muff this one. You don't really know.
I think with punt returns, reliability comes first. Remember with 𝐒𝐿𝐴₝ I mean, I don't remember. It's been years, so I don't know if I remember him ever muffing one. I mean, he returned a lot, so there might be, but I don't remember it. It certainly wasn't an issue. And the first thing that you think about when you're returning that punt, and I know we all think of it as fans, is don't fumble, don't fumble, don't fumble. Like, it's the scariest moment of every game. Those scariest moments are when, especially on windy or rainy days, when our punt returner is underneath the ball fielding a football. It's like, and I think that's true for every fan. You need a reliable guy. That's first. If they have the explosiveness and they can break one, that's a secondary thing that you absolutely love and treasure. But you have to have the first before you can have the second. And that has to be reliability.
Yeah, it absolutely has to. I mean, like, Jim Leonard sticks out to me as someone who returned punts for a couple of years. He was very, very sure-handed. Braxton Berrios was his first year, but by the end, Braxton didn't look great on the returns either. He didn't know when to field it or when to let it drop, which it's it's hard. And Gibson could, like, he was a rookie last year too. So there's a chance that he could get better and improve on these things. But I don't think it's a guaranteed lock that he is going to be the guy back there as your returner.
I think it's how you respond. Like the scariest part about him is he was fine and confident until he had the muff. Just like Berrios. Berrios had that one muff, and you noticed he was different afterwards. Specifically, not even the muff, the drop ball in the end zone against Minnesota. Even after that, everything he did was questionable because you could see the lack of confidence. And with Xavier, it's the same thing. When you make a mistake, it's how do you rebound? We also, with Zach, it wasn't nice, right? I mean, part of what makes a player is they make a mistake and then they immediately rebound and they're fine and you don't have to worry about them. I think that's part of what makes a great player versus an average player versus a bad player is how do you respond to a muff, a drop pass, a mistake. And to me, yes, Xavier was only a rookie. He has a chance to redeem himself. But the thing that I'm the most worried about with him is he that guy forever? Is he going to be a guy where as soon as one thing goes wrong, he's not going to be able to recover? Or is he going to learn how to recover from a mistake?
Yeah, and just I pulled up his numbers on returns for both kickoff and punt returns. He had 2 returns for 66 yards, had, obviously the long 65-yard and the touchdown that week 1 was spectacular. And then he had the muff against Denver and then had the muff against New England in week 18. Granted, bad weather game, last game of the year against New England. I won't kill him, but there's not a ton of returns here where you're going, well, oh, wow. Like he had a monster game where he had a couple really big returns. Like outside of that, his best day was week 17 against Cleveland where he had 20 or 30, I guess, total return yards and 20 for his long, but 66 and then 48 was his best game there.
Yeah. And I didn't know this stat existed. This is a beautiful stat you found, like a spreadsheet to look at. It's wonderful. He actually wasn't as bad as I thought. So that I like looking at this. He wasn't great. We all know that he wasn't great, but it does show that aside from the bads, for a rookie undrafted free agent, it wasn't that bad. And it definitely worthy of an opportunity to compete in camp this year.
Right. He had a great first game and then kind of was just okay after that, which I think this is what this shows. He looks like he was okay last year. He finished with 512 kickoff return yards and 319 punt return yards and the 1 touchdown, 2 muffs. Again, he was okay in that role. I think he deserves to be the starter for now under this competition, and we'll see. I hope he gets better this year and more comfortable back there fielding punts because I think he is explosive with the ball in his hands. But now you add Tariq Cohen into the mix. Again, I'm a fan of competition. I think that's good. And I wouldn't put it past guys like Izzy Abanikanda, frankly, who they had back there try to return punts and kicks in the preseason. And then also, I think Malachi Corley would be excellent in this role.
Oh, my God, yeah. I do want to make it clear that so people don't misunderstand me. If Tariq Cohen came in and regained his old form, if he was Tariq Cohen from 2019, there's no question. Of course, he's making the roster. Of course, he's going to be our returner. He's in full form at 100%. He was a Pro Bowl special teams guy. There's no question he makes the roster if he returns to form. All my doubt, everything I'm saying is he hasn't really played in 4 years. And I've never seen that. I have never seen in 40 years of watching a player come back after doing nothing for 4 years.
Yep. So there we go. It's going to be tough. We are definitely rooting for him. It'd be a really cool story, but we'll see. And again, I think it goes back to what we were saying there at the top. It's more Gibson competition than it is Izzy Abanikanda competition. Yeti chimes in with the chat, says, this is a great follow-up to Green Bean and 𝐒𝐿. I still believe in Allen Lazard. Lazard is a solid 4. Am I the only one? He might be at this point. Do you think that he could be a solid 4 this year for the New York Jets?
I don't think we're like the bottom of the league saying Alan Lazard is our WR4. Maybe somewhere in the middle of the league. I think there's a lot of teams that have questions with their WR4. No team in the league wants their WR4 to have to be a starter that you're relying on that I could think of. There might be a couple of teams that are that deep at wide receiver that they don't mind as much. But I am not going to react to an OTA, to a practice like yesterday. I know he had a bad practice yesterday. It doesn't look good with the narrative of last year, but nobody was complaining about him in the other practices. The feedback has been that he looks good. He had a horrible practice, but I'm just going to reserve judgment. I'm not going to judge either way until training camp, and I hope that he gets a lot of reps in the preseason games. I hope they haven't decided that he's automatically got his roster spot and he's automatically a WR4. I hope they at least force him to earn reps over any other guy it would be if there were injuries, because I don't want them to just assume he's the guy that comes in if there's a lot of injuries, and we just don't give guys like Brownlee the opportunity to jump over him. So I think he has to play in preseason and preseason games, get a lot of reps, and prove in game situations that he can make receptions and not drop the ball.
I want to make it clear that I don't want to overreact to training camp or not even training camp, OTA practices in May. Like, we are still a really, really long way to go. And I'll preface that by saying that, but I really think that based on how things went last year, I think it's okay to be concerned on this one. I really do, because if he was coming off a good year, or just like how he normally played last season and then had a bad practice, I would give him the benefit of the doubt a little bit. But when you end the season where you're a healthy scratch for the rest of the way, and you don't really have much of a role with the team, and then you, like, Rodgers is coming back and you have a drop in 7-on-7s, and Quantez Stiggers is getting the better of you on 11-on-11, and good for Quantez. He's fighting for spots on this roster too. It does make me a little bit concerned. I'm not going to lie to you on that one.
Yeah, I think anything he does is going to be anything negative he does is going to be concern. Like, because of what happened. Like, if he gets called for a penalty in preseason with like a bad block in the middle of the field, like anything like that was to happen.
PTSD, yeah.
Right. Like, if he gets that's going to be really bad. If he drops a pass in preseason, I just want to see him in preseason. And I agree. There's concern. There's already concern even without yesterday. I think that we all have a legitimate reason to be concerned when a guy is a healthy scratch. We all saw what happened to Denzel Mims. A lot of times that spells the end.
Yeah,
right.
It usually does.
It usually does. So he's going to have to. I think he's going to have to. I don't think it's his spot to lose, or it shouldn't be. I think he should have to win whatever spot he has.
Yes, that's how I think, though. Anyway, the proper way to look at it is, and the unfortunate reality is with his contract. Like, you can't, if he comes out and is terrible in training camp and our fears come true, that's good for no one, because they can't really cut him. You don't save any money. You're out on that contract is after this year, and no one's trading for that contract. So it's in all of our best interests to root for and want to see the best version of Allen Lazard. And that's what I want. I do want to see the best version of Allen Lazard. I hope that it's still in there and he could be something like he was in Green Bay. All I'm saying is I'm a little nervous, and his tough performance so far in OTAs isn't really easing that tension for me, at least right now.
I agree. I just think that's a more grounded take. It's like we're rooting for anybody wearing our uniform. Yeah, there are going to be guys that we have had bad experiences with, but it's not like we're rooting against them and saying, "Oh, I hope he messes up." If he's on the 53 starting, September 9th when we play, I think all 53 guys deserve our support, meaning we're rooting for them to do well because we're Jet fans. But some of them we might have concerns and not trust them and say, I as a fan don't trust that player. I wish we had a different player, but I hope I'm wrong, and I hope that player does great anyway because I'm a Jets fan and that's what we want.
Correct. That should be the way to look at it. Jets for Life says his body language and facial expressions look defeated in the clips from yesterday. Look, like confidence really does play a big part in sports, and I know that's a tough thing to talk about because it's not like a stat where you can look it up and like quantify a confidence level. But if you're doubting yourself or second guessing what you should be doing because of past mistakes, like that's when things like compound and only get worse. And that's kind of where I feel like he is right now. I think he isn't in a great space based on how things ended last season. And again, my fear is that it carries over. I hope it doesn't, but I do think that confidence and body language and all that, like, it matters.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, that's what we're talking about with Xavier Gibson, right? I mean, like, if I believe he has tons of talent and he could be great it's all mental, I think. If he, as a punt returner, if he mentally is there and could get over that, those issues, we saw he could be a fantastic punt returner. And I think the same thing as a receiver.
Yep. I think so. I think so too. But anyway, we have another topic that I wanted to get into today with you, Jeremy, that I'm not going to lie to you, I'm a little fired up over. So usually you're the one who goes on the rants and the raves, but we might get me to go today. And the caption, as you can see, is Rodgers blister drama. So it's OTAs. Aaron Rodgers takes his shoe off and was getting work done on the bottom of his foot. He would return, by the way. He would return and continue practice. But there's a video going around, and now all the think pieces and the social media clips, the aggregators, all the terribly annoying people on the internet are, coming out of the woodworks to talk about this. And, we recorded it or do the show live every Thursday at 3 p.m. At 2:15, I saw an article come out, and I immediately texted it to Jeremy, and I said, this is so perfect that we have our show in 45 minutes because this is what Reality Check was made for. Look at the headline. Video of Aaron Rodgers hobbling around the practice field is a harbinger of doom for the Jets again. That is not the only one. You also have right above it, Drew Davenport, fantasy football guy for who knows where. Doesn't matter. Says a gentle reminder that when you draft Garrett Wilson as high as he is going right now, you're also drafting the health of Aaron Rodgers. This is it. This is the video. This is the whole video right here, guys. It's not, his leg didn't get amputated at practice. He took his shoe and sock off. You're going to see, we'll play it again. We'll see. Look, here comes a medical trainer. It looks like they're looking at something. They're taping up the bottom of his foot, right? Here we see that here. And then after that, look, here he goes. He pitches to, hey, our friend Izzy Abanikanda, who we were just talking about. And now do a little play action fake, roll out on the move, dump it down. What are we doing here, Jeremy? What are we doing here? He had a effing blister, man. Come on.
There ought to be a way to retract people's blue check marks. I think that if you're going to have a blue check mark, shouldn't there be some accountability and responsibility to be someone who doesn't just post any garbage? Isn't the blue check mark supposed to represent some kind of trustworthiness?
That was the point originally, and then unfortunately our guy Elon Musk made it so that if you pay $10, anyone gets a blue check mark. So it's no good.
No good. It's unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable to me that people jump to that conclusion, because even if you look at it, you could tell by the body language. He didn't go to the ground on the field and point and call for help. He took his shoe off and folded his shoe up. I've seen myself in that position a million times, taking a little rock or pebble out of my freaking sock. Or like when you're at the beach or something, or you're in a sandy place. I mean, give me a break. He was literally, you could tell by the body language that there was nothing seriously wrong. And for those of you who are worried about blisters being a problem, I think you're happy it happened now, because maybe At worst, he's going to have to realize, oh, I'm going to have to use baby powder or a special kind of moisturizer for my feet because I don't want to get blisters. I got to a certain age or for whatever reason. Okay, that happens to people. There are ways to prevent blisters. Maybe he didn't use the right prevention, and now he's going to be more careful to prevent blisters. Who cares?
Yeah. He got some Neosporin and a Band-Aid put on, and apparently that equates to him gonna rupture his other Achilles this year. I just, it's really unbelievable. As Rico the Pup says, you got to call up Blistergate. I have never seen so much of an uproar over an effing blister. Bro just needs to break in his cleats. Anyone with fresh kicks have gone through that. That's a great point too. With the new shoes and the new cleat, like,
yeah,
it's unbelievable. It really, really is.
Unbelievable. And it's a blister.
Yeti says, I can't wait to see all the BS that the media creates the next few months. It's going to be hysterical. Hang in there, boys. It's really frustrating because of the things that Rodgers says and does off the field, that you have people who have these preconceived notions on him as a person. Like, I'm taking away how he is on the football field, but there's people who can't differentiate between Aaron Rodgers, the person that they may disagree with, and Aaron Rodgers, the player. And like, they hold the things that they disagree with him on, or the things that he says, against him as a player. And this is how we get to this point. It's just, I don't know. It's only May, Jeremy. How are we going to do this for another 8 months?
It's look, until he's playing and not getting hurt, there's going to always be people left out there waiting for him to get hurt. You know, that's just going to be the attitude that he, you know, I think maybe those people are helping us. Maybe the expectation of him getting hurt is actually a good thing. Maybe because we were so excited last year, and the last thing I think any of us were thinking about was he was going to go down the 4th play-in. So maybe if we're assuming the worst, maybe that's what it's going to take for things to go right for us as an organization. I don't know. But I just don't see, you know, there's always going to be that underlying fear, right? Because right now, if you look at our roster, obviously, and with everything we've experienced as Jet fans over the years, obviously there's going to always be that fear that something's going to go wrong and we're going to be robbed and deprived of our chance. We're always going to have that. But knowing that we're always going to have that shouldn't shut down the side of you that gets to enjoy the roster that we've built, be optimistic, be hopeful, have fun thinking about the possibilities of how many games we could win. Like, I don't see as a fan why you'd want to deprive yourself of that, especially if you're a Jets fan, because that's really all we've had.
Yeah, exactly. It's insane. Air Rosie comes in, says, Matt, very excited for this year. Have some concerns, though. Williams coming off an ACL and may not be ready to start. We have no proven number 2. We need another wide receiver, in my opinion. He has some more comments in here, but let's start there. I do think it's a fair worry or concern about the health of Mike Williams. He hasn't participated yet. We won't see him until July, more than likely. And if that's the case, maybe they do look to add a veteran. I don't know why we haven't heard Corey Davis's name. I feel like after he was initially that was making the comeback and was going to be reinstated into the league, it was like, oh, cool. Okay, like, let's see where he ends up. And then it's been silence ever since on that front. So I wonder where he does play this year, if it's the Jets, if it's Tennessee, or somewhere else.
Yeah, we have no idea, because silence could just mean they spoke and they said, and they all agreed, we're going to talk on June 1st. Or we're going to talk, you know, like, it could be, or tomorrow. It could be anytime in the future. We don't know. It could already be he decided not to come back. But that more likely he would have made an announcement. He would have went on Twitter and said, I'm officially retiring. So there's a possibility that either Tennessee, the Jets, or any other team, they already have a plan in place, and they're just not talking about it, and they're keeping it quiet. As far as, do we need a number 2? I would say it would make us better if we had a number 2 that's more proven than a 𝐒𝐿𝐴, who was the 65th pick in the draft coming into his rookie year, who looks more like a slot, who doesn't have the full route tree yet. And then you're looking at Allen, Lazard, and Brownlee as your other options. I would say, yeah. But I think that one of the things they might be waiting for is June 1st cuts. And they might be waiting to see what they have. Like, What does Allen Lazard look like other than just one practice yesterday? And yesterday's practice might even, for all we know, they're talking right now, oh, we're going to need someone, or they're going to wait till June to decide that. And they might bring in a guy that is a more reliable backup in case Mike Williams is hurt. And I know what everybody's thinking. Well, who's going to be available? The truth is we really probably don't have the money or the resources to seriously bring in anybody that would cost real money. So, and there is some flexibility to clear like $4 or $5 million if we need it. So I think that's what you're looking at. And we might see another wide receiver come in.
I think the most likely time we see a wide receiver come in is the trade deadline. I think that's when you could see the Jets get aggressive and be buyers. But I think right now it's going to end up sticking with where it is. And again, if we're a month and a half into the season and Lazard stinks and Mike Williams is, not really himself, then could they turn around? And obviously the big one would be like Devontae Adams, but even like, I don't know, Darius Slayton with the Giants, he puts up 700 receiving yards every year and he's on a really cheap contract and he's, potentially wants out there. Like there's potential options that the Jets could go in and at least add another solid body in here. I wouldn't be surprised to see them make some sort of move at the deadline or right before the deadline at wide receiver. I think that's the most likely time we'll see it.
Yeah, you'll see somebody come in. Look, obviously we want. I mean, you could go to any team. There are plenty of teams that have two boundary guys and a slot guy that you really like, right? And I think that they like Corley. And I know he's a rookie, but I think we're all excited about the potential of Corley. And I just think with us, and then every team would be in trouble if somebody went down as far as not having a great player coming to replace them. I think the concern for us, it's a combination. We have like a combination. Our slot guy is a rookie, so we don't know how effective he's going to be completely. It's not proven. Then you have a guy, like already said, off an ACL specifically.
Yep.
Then you have your guy off the bench as a guy who's a healthy scratch. I think all those things combined kind of leaves us all with an uneasy feeling.
Absolutely. Comment here from Dakota says, oh, by the way, I also believe a lot in Quantez Stiggers. Love Dakota to death. He is always the first one in the chat. My question to you, Jeremy, and then also to Dakota in the chat. Is there someone that Dakota does not believe a lot in? Because I think it's strict positivity all around the clock from our guy, Dakota.
You definitely need that. We need the Dakotas to balance out the, I don't want to say a name, but like to balance out the guys that are always negative.
Yeah.
Right. So you need Dakotas in the world, and I mean, I'd rather be, if I had to choose which one I was going to be, I'm probably more Dakota than I am the negative. And I make that, and I think that's a good, healthy place to be. Because if we're going to end up sucking, if it's going to fall apart on us, if the season's going to go to shit, if all these guys are going to get cleared out and we have to rebuild again, at least there was some positivity and excitement and enjoyment in being a fan.
Yes, I'd rather go through it with that mindset than just be absolutely miserable, because that is not fun for anybody there. Blitz Crew asks if Mike Williams is not okay coming out of the preseason. Vet minimum on Mike Thomas?
I would love that.
Okay.
I would love it. I'm all in on that. Vet minimum for a guy with experience, for a guy who got hurt, came back, and was actually not horrible. There was no evidence he can't play anymore. And the hope would be that you're not relying on him to be 17 games, like 800 to 1,000 yards. You're relying on him to just be able to, if Williams is not ready, to be enough that the other team has to cover him even. That he has to be a guy that the other team has to worry about and respect. And I think if you leave Mike Williams alone and have no respect for him as a defense, oh, come on. There's no way he lost that much ability.
It's just, he similarly to Cohen, like his best days were 2018, 2019. And then unfortunately the injuries took over in 2020. He played 7 games, all of 2021 he missed. He missed 14 games in 2022. He played in 10 games last year, which was pretty nice. And he had 448 yards. maybe he could serve a purpose of holding it down for a few games, but that would be only in the scenario of Mike Williams not being okay, needed a Band-Aid for like 2 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't want to go into the playoffs where our number 2 receiver is Mike Thomas.
No.
Without any proof, unless he had a great year already. But with what we know now, about Mike Thomas, but we're talking about depth. If you had a guy that was more proven, that you were more confident in, then you're talking about money, right? Because every team is going to want that guy. So sometimes you have to roll the dice, especially with depth. You just have to roll the dice and hope that if you need him, he's going to be able to step up and deliver what you need.
There you go. I was laughing in the chat because we had the opposite in the end of the spectrum with the JJs and the Allens of the world of the Dakota. So he Jets for Life was able to toss some names in there.
I didn't want to.
No, that's quite okay. We have a question from Air Razy who says the Dolphins just extended Waddle. They have so much money tied up to Hill and Waddle. Why are we not signing our guys to extensions yet? Well, most haven't hit 3 years. So you need the 2022 class needs to play another year before they're eligible. But someone who I do think they should be looking to extend right now is Michael Carter, the slot corner, is someone who I think they should be looking at and not making the same mistake that they made with Bryce Huff and not trying to get that done, when they had the first opportunity to.
Yeah, and this guy, I mean, and it would be a bigger mistake because Huff, at least you can argue with Huff. There was still a little bit of iffiness. We didn't know for sure he was going to have a 12-sack season, and then also Huff has a glaring weakness. He's evidently and very conclusively very, very weak against the run. Like, he has a limitation as a football player. He really, if you're smart and you're trying to win, you really can only put Huff in pass rush situations. He is a specific role player, a specialty player. Michael Carter is not. Michael Carter does not have a horrible or specific limitation. Michael Carter is one of the top slot, cover guys in the NFL. So to me, it's even a bigger mistake. They're not easy to find, and we need to reward them. We got all the cheap years out of him for being smart enough to draft them. Now it's time to pay a little bit and give back to him for all he's given us and all he'll continue to give us.
I'm sorry, this comment's too good not to put up. Alan's the type of guy who would say, "I bet this ends in divorce at his own wedding." Man, it's pure negativity. That's an all-time quote. That really is, Rico. That made me laugh. And look, some people, that's just how they view things, man. But as Jeremy said, it's kind of, you have both ends of the spectrum, and it kind of helps to have that other side when you're getting too much of the other thing. It keeps you grounded and balanced, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I mean, my favorite kind of thing is you and Green Bean. The reason I started watching you, Green Bean, and got sucked into this whole world on YouTube was because of the balance. Like you, Ryan, Green Bean, Nick, Buffalo. Like, when you name like a lot of the content providers, one of the things that's great about them, at least in my opinion, is the balance. There's a balance. There's a fair balance. We're not like overly a homer or overly negative. It's just kind of, it's take by take, mood by mood, situation by situation.
100%. I think that's the best way to go about looking at these things right now for the Jets. We miss Frankie from Flatbush. Dakota says Frankie from Flatbush used to have a really good show early in the mornings with coffee, and a few seasons ago he was on with Green Bean and you guys. What was that? About a month ago, maybe he hopped on the Thursday Think of It. Frankie,
yeah, he came on as a guest. Me and Frankie used to do a game show together. That's what we both started. We were both two guys in the chat. And Frankie started the channel first, and I said, hey, I don't want to deal with it. If you're willing to deal with the technology, I'll come on. And we did a show, and that's how I got the name Chaos, because it was calm and chaos. And the whole thing was Frankie was the balanced, very calm, middle of the road guy. And the dynamic between us was I was the crazy, chaotic one saying, Zach Wilson's going to throw for 40 touchdowns and 5,000 yards. He's unstoppable. Now, I've calmed down since then But that's literally how we started. And Frankie is definitely one of those poster childs for calm and balanced.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, I would say. By the way, did you see today Brian Costello had some really good journalism? I don't know if you saw that today. A nice piece of journalism. He shared with us a PR email that he received that Robert Saleh tops the coaching rankings on this list, and it's Robert Saleh has been named the sexiest head coach in the NFL. So how do you feel that Robert Saleh is at 8.01 on the beauty scale and comes in at number 1 here?
It's evidence that, because there are certain coaches you can't stand the sight of. Like you look at 𝐀𝐮 or Gase. I mean Gase.
Oh,
right. You couldn't look at them. But Saleh is proof that no matter how good looking you are, if in my perception, and there have been many moments of the last 3 years where I've hated his guts in that moment, where I've thought he's absolute garbage, or even a good looking guy could be unbearable to look at. And when he would be on that sideline with his head hung down, not yelling at players, not on the sideline, putting his head into little huddles, like you saw Pete Carroll do. Pete Carroll's the best example of that kind of coach. It showed that looks don't matter. You are just as unbearable to look at. But I will say, when he sits at the press conference, it's nice to have a guy that doesn't make you want to puke. I think this is a very big year for Robert Saleh. This is, now that he has a quarterback, as long as we stay healthy, this is definitely going to be his make or break. He could either propel himself to, oh my God, he started with nothing. 4 years later, we're going deep in the playoffs. He gave us this great defense. Look what happened when you gave him a quarterback. We love you. Really good coach. Keep it going, sustain it, prove it, but we're feeling good about him. If something goes wrong this year, whether it's injury or not, it doesn't matter. Then he just goes into the trash can along with Gase, along with 𝐀𝐮, along with all the others before him.
I will say, I don't know how great this ranking is if Andy Reid and Mike McCarthy are in the top 6 of hottest head coaches. That's insane.
Maybe maybe Andy Reid has like the Midwesterner thing going to him. You know what I mean? Like the Drew Carey type of thing. I don't know.
He'll do well at the local town mayonnaise festival over the summer. Oh God. But that was funny. In all seriousness though, like you said, I do agree 1,000% with you that this is a gigantic test for Robert Saleh. I know a lot of people feel like they're all the way out on Saleh. That's not where I am.
Oh.
I want to see him with Aaron Rodgers and have a real quarterback and then make my decision. That is not me saying that he definitely is the guy or that he definitely isn't. I still put him as a question mark and an unknown. Now, I do think it's fair when people talk about the Jets and they point out being unsure about Robert Saleh as a potential reason for them not being a Super Bowl team, which I think that if that's your opinion on it, fine, that's fair. But I'm not ready to go that he is absolutely going to be the thing that holds them back. I can't say that because we've seen him with a historically bad quarterback for his entire tenure here.
I think that if we went to the future and said the Jets only this year win 5 or 6 or 7 games, and we had to predict what went wrong. Number one is injuries, because we're obviously going to instinctually say that because it's happened so many times. I think somewhere, and it's reasonable, whether it's number 2 or number 5, that in everybody's top 5, if they said what went wrong was we didn't have the right coach, I think it's perfectly reasonable to predict that that's what went wrong. But I just don't like you. I don't feel that that's a definite thing. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, there's no way we could do well because we're stuck with Saleh, for the very reason we both mentioned, and that's he's never had a quarterback. Let's see what happens if he gets a full season of having a quarterback, and then the evidence will be there, at least where he's projecting. Because I'm not gonna, if he's horrible with Rodgers all 17 games, he's over as a coach, as a head coach, at least in MetLife. If he's great, He's still not proven. He's just, like if we win 12 games, 13 games, go deep into the playoffs, the whole thing, it's still not 100% proven. Like he still has things to prove in his career.
1,000%. There's still more left to prove. You are right with that. Blitzcrew says, heard whispers that if Saleh doesn't win, Belichick coming next season. If that happens, I don't know what I'm going to do. Blitzcrew, I would put it, I am comfortable saying, Jeremy, that there is a 0.0% chance that Bill Belichick would ever coach the New York Jets. He hates the Jets with a passion. That bridge is long been burned.
I wouldn't want him. I don't care.
Yeah, right.
I don't care if there's an argument that he'd be good. Even I can't look at him. I can't. Not after what he did to us. You have to have some line that you draw in the sand. Like you have to draw a line somewhere, and you cannot tell me that after what he did to us and how he left this organization flat when Parcells left, that you are willing to let that go and allow this guy to ever call himself a Jet. I have too much pride for that.
Yeah, I am with you 1,000%. Where would he rank on your list? Is he 32 out of 32? Belichick or
as the guy I want?
How many? No. For the hotness scale, someone you don't want to look at. He's got to be last on the list, right?
He's got to be last on the list. I mean, you got to think the Miami coach. You got to think people might have like a quirky little like 𝐀𝐮𝐫𝐚 thing going. So maybe he's 30, 31. You know, they like that look, but like I think that you have to put Belichick on the bottom of the list.
Yeah, I can't. I don't want to look at his face. It brings me nothing but unpleasant feelings. Unpleasant.
By the way, you want to talk about cannonballs fired?
Yeah, that's right. Ron P says, I see that Jeremy Ruckert is getting pushed back further on the depth chart. I begged fans to show me the hype. Where are you seeing him get pushed back further on the depth chart? Are you noticing that?
Because they showed 𝐆𝐫𝐞 making a catch. So the whole
I guess that's it, right? Is that's what we're basing this on? Kenny 𝐆𝐵𝐞 catch?
Kenny 𝐆𝐵𝐞 caught a ball in practice. Your Ruckert's over. Let me tell you something. How about this? How about we do this? Find me in the 2 years that Ruckert's been given any opportunity. Look at the film. Look at the All-22 of the games that Ruckert played in, which is a lot of them, but minimal reps in his first 2 years as a football player, and show me evidence that he's not good. Show me what he did wrong. Show me a mistake he's made. Show me where he's missed blocks. Show me where he's dropped passes. I think he's dropped one pass in the 2 years in my memory. I have memory, but I do specifically remember some plays where he looked amazing making a catch, like going up high and sucking the ball in and making contested catches. Yeah, making a great contested catch. I think that Ruckert has been a victim of, he started the last 2 years as the tight end 3 again behind two veterans. And we still don't know because he still hasn't been given his opportunity. And I think Saleh has said it a million times, year three, for so many young players, that year 3 is their breakout year where you have to look for who they're going to be as a player.
There we go. Sean, thank you for popping in. He goes, I'm on lunch, just stopping by to say hi and hit the like button. This is why we are able to do what we do here, because of people like Sean who come in, just show us some love. It's free. Leave a like. Before we go, we're about to wrap up the show here, but before you go, make sure to drop in a like, a comment, a subscribe, share with a friend. All that stuff really goes a long way to helping us grow here on Talking Jets. And the more people we have in here talking Jets football, the better. You know, it's an amazing community we have on YouTube, and it's so cool to see this thing grow.
The best community on YouTube of any NFL team. We are number one. We are the best YouTube community, and that's everyone from the content creators to the intense biggest supporters to the casual supporters. We are the best fan base on YouTube and on Twitter, even though we say ridiculous things sometimes, and they give us a ton of content. You guys also give us a ton of content for a reality check, but that's why we love you. Jeremy, any final closing thoughts here before we hop out for this Thursday edition of Reality Check? All I can say is I cannot wait till July. I cannot wait till real training camp begins. Man, I'm tempted, if I can get some kind of crazy flight, I'm tempted to fly out, man. I want to go see a practice so bad. Like I can't even tell you. So I don't know. Maybe somehow it'll happen, but so excited for July 1st. So excited for next week's show, Matt, because these shows fly by and I love them. Love doing this.
Me too. It's always a blast hopping on, talking with you for an hour and getting in with the chat. I agree. I love training camp. I usually try to make it out a couple times to Florham Park, but I'm going to be honest with you. For selfish reasons, I really miss when they were at Hofstra, man. Yeah. I grew up 10 minutes from Hofstra. So the number of practices that I went to as a kid growing up until they left in 2008. So I was in like early middle school, let's say, or late, whatever. Moral of the story. They were there for most of my childhood, and I miss being able to go at the drop of a hat and just be like, oh yeah, I'll go watch the Jets practice. It's 10 minutes instead of, oh, I'm going to watch the Jets practice tomorrow. This is going to be a 5-hour affair between driving there, watching it, and then the drive back home.
I feel you. I grew up in Brooklyn, and it was not a long drive to Hofstra. It was nice and easy. Belt Parkway, into Long Island, it was easy as can be.
Yep, there you go. So, guys, thank you so much for your support. Once again, please leave a like before you go. I'm Matt. He is Jeremy, and we will catch you guys next time.